There is an amendment to Senate Bill 1150. But if I may go ahead and explain the amendment, it just expands a little bit on our current language, and it just allows licensees and permittees to offer to their bartenders or individuals who may serve or dispense alcoholic beverages the opportunity to participate in a bar bystander training module. This module is offered by ABC, so there's really no expense associated with this. It's very quick, but it will provide some useful information on how a bartender, for example, could intervene in a situation which could have the potential of progressing to a sexual assault kind of activity. It's a very good bill. It's preventive in nature. I know that there have been studies done on bars that have implemented this training with their employees in areas that have quite colleges, college towns, and they've actually seen a reduction in the reporting of sexual assaults. For whatever reason, I don't have my talking point on that exactly to give you the exact reduction, but I would respectfully ask that you pass the bill.
Questions from patrons at this time? Okay. Is anyone here to speak in favor of this measure? Anyone here to speak in opposition?
So, I like the idea of the bill. What I'm worried about is putting in the code and therefore creating a cause of action against a restaurant when someone gets, sexually assaulted by saying that you didn't fulfill your responsibilities because your employer did not give you the training required in the code. And I think there may be another way to do this, and that is somewhere in the code section dealing with what ABC is supposed to do. I'm sure there's a code section that says ABC, they're supposed to have hearings, they're supposed to pay taxes, etc., and put it in the list there that they should make available this program.
Mr. Chairman?
Take it. I don't know this is what it does.
My understanding is this would be done by the ABC board.
Workshop, I guess that's what and I wasn't reading the bill properly, I thought that this section dealt with the duties of a restaurant, but this section actually deals with the duties of ABC.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Maybe my finger is not founded. Is there anybody in the audience knows about Dram Shop Act liability? Do you, Tom?
Yeah. We don't have it.
I only know that the highlights that no one has successfully been sued in Virginia for over-serving somebody because our courts say that you're responsible for your own behavior, right?
That is correct. The Virginia Supreme Court has on several occasions ruled that the proximate cause of any injury arising from the consumption of alcohol, proximate cause is the act of the person consuming alcohol, not the act of someone serving alcohol, whether it be a social host or whether it be a commercial establishment. And the legislature on a number of occasions has failed to pass Dram Shop legislation as well.
So, let's just say you represent a restaurant and the regs are made available in the Virginia Code, and a restaurant doesn't train a guy, and he
ABC already offers training on over-service of alcohol, service to underage persons, a wide variety, and I think, for Travis, I think they may already offer some forms of training regarding over-service and vulnerability to sexual assault, but I would defer to him on that. So you already have degrees of training available to licensees in a wide variety of things that would constitute violations. To date, there has been a successful pursuit of gram shot action based on that.
Dram mean anyway.
It goes back to prohibition, where drugstores would serve, during prohibition, you could get a prescription from your physician to go to the drugstore and get a dram of alcohol to cure what ails you.
I know on my shotgun shells, I use high brass and it's 4 grams of powder.
Just to follow up on what Mr. Lisk said, yes, ABC does currently offer training in person. We've just recently, here's a plug for ABC website, we just recently started more online training for cellar servers, and that online training does contain bystander intervention training, so we do have this currently.
Okay, anyone else speak to the manager? Committee, what's your pleasure?
I'll move to report.
There's a motion.
No, we need Dr. Amendments.
Okay. Did you have amendments there?
I did, Mr. Chairman, I explained it already.
Chairman, I will withdraw my motion so we can amend the bill.
You report the amendments to us, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the first amendment, is on page 2 of the bill at line 102. After available to all, strike retail on premises. Second amendment is after, on the same line, after licensee, you would insert and permittees that allow on-premises consumption of alcoholic beverages. The third amendment is at the end of that line, after such licensees, you would insert and permittees. And that same amendment would go line 104 at the end of the line, says that enables licensees and permittees and their employees.
Have a motion on that.
I'll move the minutes. Second.
Okay, all in favor of the amendments, say aye. Okay.
Just a question for the patron then.
Yes.
Senator Favola, so we heard from ABC that this is already happening. We heard that this language is permissive, that the restaurants may do it. Just help me understand what we're trying to get to. If it's already exists and restaurants can already do it, what do we really need the bill for? Because I support the intent, but I just heard that this is already all possible.
It is possible. I mean, the interest in having the bill is that it would become more known that it is possible. That, because licensees and permittees frequently go to the ABC board regulation site. And so this would be in there. That was the interest. That was the purpose.
So my cynical nature is, we pass laws down here and citizens don't really know, or people don't know. I would expect this bill would say, if you want to be a restaurant and you want to get a license, then ABC has to make you aware that there is voluntary training about this thing. That's a whole different bill. I think just requiring it in the code would suggest that this would highlight it or create some sort of awareness when we all know that it's not really true. I wish it was true, but is there any obligation in this language that would require ABC to make restaurants aware that this training is available? And I don't think there is.
No, there's no language that would require ABC to make restaurants aware, but I would hope they would make restaurants aware of all their regulations. So this is a baby step, although I certainly like your idea, and I'd be happy to work on it again next year. Take it further.
Any discussion?
Everybody else reading my mind.
Okay.
I move to report.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
guy for the day, the jacket.
That's my gambling jacket.
That's right, say it again. Say it.
Okay, Senator, you have, Senate Bill 1512.
Yes, Senator Lewis and I are going to the new casino in DC.
That's correct.
I guess we're ready, as soon as this is over.
And he's driving.
Mr. Chairman, new sound.
Urge your thought and get on with the Senate bill. Okay, give Senator your next.
So, Senate Bill 1512 is my bingo bill. It's a pretty straightforward bill, I think. It basically just says that if a bingo game is canceled due to a weather event or religious holiday, that it can be rescheduled. Apparently that can't happen right now. So that's pretty, it does that, and it also says that volunteers can be paid $50 for their volunteering. Because you know these are done by charities. So that's pretty much what the bill does. And I have other people here to speak to it.
Let's hold on just a minute. Maria, do you have a technical difficulties?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, on page 2, I'm just correcting a citation, on page 2, line 109. That's all,
27:1.
correct.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that's the shortest bill explanation I've ever given ever in the history of either body.
Okay, so y'all, we need to get amendment for us, Maria. Okay. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Okay. Okay, Senator Servell, we're, any questions of patron this time? I think we're going to have testimony on both sides. So, anyone that's in favor of this legislation, please come forward.
Matt Beck with the Virginia Charitable Bingo Association, we support this bill. The language that you see in the special permits is really clarifying language. If you look at the language that's struck in lines 56 and 58, it somewhat implies that you could get special permits for days that land on federal holidays, religious holidays, but it just wasn't clear. We went to the AG's office and they said, listen, you have to make it work. And that's exactly what we're doing in that special permit section, which is in line 60 to 76. Then lines 148 to 149, remuneration for the volunteers is really for reimbursement of travel. That's what we're looking forward for folks. Is that people put a lot of time and effort into it.
So Matt, I remember, might have been 20 years ago, that this idea of paying volunteers came up and certain groups were crazy. And I remember the American Legion or something didn't want to have even authorizing language to allow them to pay volunteers. So is that issue like not a big issue anymore?
I'm not aware of anyone that's opposed to it, but yeah, and actually I have Chuck Nelson here, our legislative director, that can speak a little bit more to it.
Mr. Chairman, members, I'm Chuck Lesson. I'm currently serving on the Virginia Charitable Gaming Board, and I'm also the legislative director of the Virginia Charitable Bingo Association. To Delegate Albo's point, a number of years ago, this body did approve payment for bingo callers and for bingo managers up to $100 per session. This small tweak is a result of a couple things. Some of the charities finding it more difficult to get volunteers, some wanting to be able to reimburse for travel expense. But we should also note that many charities, if this bill passes through, and we hope it does, many charities will choose either to not reimburse anything to their volunteers, or the bill says up to $50. So there will be some charities who will reimburse up to that 50, but not the full 50. So to my knowledge, there is no objection to this section of this bill.
Wes, no, ask you, I personally don't like the $50 per session, that's just a personal observation. But also, if we go over here, it looks take all of these religious holidays, and I ask you in a minute how many we're talking in a year, I don't understand why we're over 90 days, unless we're gonna stack these things all together.
Mr. Chairman, the idea is that if you have, let's say, Christmas falls on a Thursday, and there are many charities that play bingo on Thursdays, instead of that makeup game happening within a 1-week period or a 2-week period, it gives you a chance to spread out those makeup games so that they all don't occur on the same day. And I think that was really the only reason. I think we would be fine if that were shortened, but I think by stretching it out, it also allows the landlords to structure a lease, which is required by the Office of Charitable and Regulatory Programming. It gives the landlords a chance to look ahead as the leases renew and say, hey, by the way, in this calendar year, your game's gonna fall on Christmas. Do you wanna play it on Christmas Day, or do you wanna play it on a different day as a makeup game? So that was the idea.
And how many religious holidays, state, federal, or how many state, federal, or religious holidays do we have a year?
I don't have a count, since there could be multiple religions represented, but I will tell you this. In most cases, I would say 80% or 90% of the holidays, the charities want to play on those holidays. You know, the holidays like Memorial Day, Labor Day, etc., July 4th, people want those days because people are off work and they can play. It's really only the, I guess, more noted holidays of Christmas, Easter, Passover, just a few a year.
Okay, any other questions this time? Anything, okay, is anyone else here to speak in favor of this motion? Anyone here to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, Bud Oakey, representing the Virginia Charitable Gaming Council, which is made up of Boots VFW, American Legion, Elks, and other charities throughout Virginia. As I said, the devil's in the details. We did some looking at this once we saw the bill. There are 8 federal and state recognized holidays, but there are, according to the Interfaith Religious Calendar, there are 121 religious holidays. And I'm not going to go through the list of different religions that covers. Many religious holidays such as Passover, Sukkot, Hanukkah last a week in time. Jewish and Muslim holidays start at sunset the day before the date listed and continue sunset the next day. Due to Islam's use of the lunar calendar, some dates will be confirmed closer to the holiday. So this is a moving target, and with that many holidays, it can be overused. What we're told when questioning staff is they're not quite sure how they even promulgate the rules around this. We have not known this to be an issue until this past year, and none of the charities that are members of the VCGC have indicated to us that it is an issue. The second issue, while we do find some merit in the issue of paying volunteers, they still are volunteers working for the charities, and we are concerned at moving at this at a faster pace, that right now we would do more of taking volunteers from one charity to another because of the money, and end up hurting certain charities' ability in localities that have more than just 1 or 2 bingo games going on, depleting that pool of volunteers in a pool that is already very tough to fill. Thank you, sir.
Chairman, I have two questions for the patron. Scott, when we think about the holidays, there's a code section that Maria can quote here in a second that talks about a limited number of, I don't know what the right words are, Maria, legally recognized or state recognized, but it's already in the code, and if we're going to use holidays, I think we should refer back to the holidays enumerated in that code section. Do you have a thought on that, Scott? Senator Strobel?
I think trying to restrict the holidays to a tighter list would be okay. I was just trying to figure out whether there's a way to do that without getting the First Amendment issues. And if there's something already in the code that's battle tested, narrowed.
state recognized holidays per code section XYZ. And I so move.
They're fine with that.
Okay, everyone understand the motion on the table, all in favor, say aye.
So we'll figure out that code section.
Senator Circle, the second concept I think that is causing some concern up here is this concept of the $50 being basically for anything. The word that's there is giving us some discomfort, so we'd like to see something that said reimbursement for actual costs, not pay or any other salary. If we have a volunteer, we might reimburse them for actual costs, but nothing more. And that might be an area to tighten up as well.
I think that meets with the intent of the folks that have been working on it.
Okay,
Remove that concept.
I think we're gonna have more.
Mr. Chairman, it would be on page 3, line 148, after F, you would strike remuneration may be paid to volunteers, and then insert volunteers of a qualified organization may be reimbursed for the reasonable and necessary travel expenses, not to exceed $50 per session. So you just rewrite that whole sentence basically.
No reason to move that around.
So moved.
Second. Okay, all everyone understands, and all in favor, then say aye. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one last question. Bud, does that help you get comfortable, or are you against the bill anyway? Just wondering.
It helps us a little bit, we're still looking at it.
Anyone else here to speak to this matter? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question. I just want to make sure that I discern the position of, you spoke to this, but I wasn't quite clear, or if somebody else in the room can answer it. What is the position of the VFW, the American Legion, and the Disabled Veterans on this? Because of one of the roles that I fulfill here, obviously, it's something I'm interested in, and I have not heard from any of those organizations.
I can tell you, I haven't talked with the head of the American Legion on this subject. VFW is not supportive of it. The Fraternal Order of Police is not supportive of it. We were still polling members on this and looking to see what we could do to make it work. You know, at the end of the day, as an association, we don't think it's ready for prime time yet. So we think the intent's good, but we're not sure it's ready for prime time.
I think Mr. Lessman.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, our organization has over 92 members in every corner of the state, and many of our members are VFWs, FOPs, Elks, and Moose, and they are supportive. I can't speak to any folks at the state level, but many of the charities that actually have the permits are in support of this, and to my knowledge, this is the first opposition I've heard to it.
Okay, committee?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Okay.
Chair, I move to report Senate Bill 1512 as amended.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Bill report.
Thank you. Should I do the full committee?
Probably be a good idea.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, sign the jacket.
Got it.
Senator Lucas?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Senate Bill 1400. And I think I might want to start with the alignment first. On line 241 of the bill. Strike any, add only. Do you have those on?
Yep.
Okay, which one?
Mr. Chairman, page 4, line 241, after capital A, strike any and insert only. The next amendment is on page 6, lines 345, after bingo game, strike semicolon and in all of line 346 and insert a period. The next
younger senators to help me with my casino bills and my poker bills. I hang out with Scott with my gaming bills and with the staff with my poker bills. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill 1400 provides that poker is a game of skill, not a chance, and therefore not illegal gaming. And as you all probably already know, there has been a Supreme Court ruling, multiple Supreme Court rulings that back up what I'm saying, and that is that poker is a game of skill and not a chance. And that's proven by my grandson. The bill also allows a qualified organization to conduct poker games in conjunction with its charitable gaming activities, but does not allow a charitable organization to conduct poker tournaments. The bill requires the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services and the Charitable Gaming Board to regulate poker tournaments, defined in the bill as a competitive organized for the competition organized for the purpose of conducting poker games at one or multiple tables where competitors play a series of poker games, prizes are awarded to winning players on a fixed or proportional payout basis, and the total prize amount awarded to all winners players to the event is $50,000 or more. Now, I could go on more, but I want my colleague and my supporter here to also add to the bill.
I'll provide a little bit of a backstory on this, and we did some research into this. There's, I believe, four, and Maria, if you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe there's 4 Supreme Court cases that show poker's game of skill, not a chance. We wrote a letter, and then a second letter to the Attorney General asking him for his opinion and to opine on this. He refused to on both of them. Then multiple calls to the office, the Attorney General's office, just basically said that no matter what we wrote, he wasn't going to provide an opinion at all. So Senator Lucas and I decided to put a bill in and show that poker is truly a game of skill and chance. And if you don't believe me, invite me to your poker game and see how quickly I lose.
Or my grandson and see how quickly he wins.
Exactly.
Okay, any questions or debates? Okay, to speak in favor of this measure.
We're going to hold you for last. Who's coming first?
Chairman and members of the debate, my name is Wes Crowder. I'm the chairman of the Virginia Charitable Gaming Council. I'm also secretary of the Virginia Subcommittee. And I'd like to speak in favor of this bill. You know, bingo game is not what it used to be. Because that means we don't have as much money to donate to charity. But in the last probably 20 years or so, the Virginia Blue Association has donated $1.7 million plus to the Master Cancer, which is right down the street here. And if we be able to get the poker approved, then that means we would have more money to donate to the different charities. I know I've been working on this a long time. We appreciate your support. You know, we have advanced the sports now, and we get more and more things approved. It would be nice to get the charitable poker approved. I think it would be a good game, and it would get everything set up in the right direction. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else speak in favor? Those in opposition?
My name is Bruce Campbell of the Family Foundation. We are opposed to SB 1400 on many fronts. Primarily that both components of the charitable gaming and poker tournaments are expansions of gambling, with the damaging ramifications that gambling brings to families and communities. Personally, the charitable gaming part of this bill, today only games of chance, like bingo and raffles, are permitted in charitable gaming. Introducing games of skill will dramatically change the dynamic in the Firehouse Bingo Hall. Each poker game pits players directly against each other in a much more personal way than simply following a bingo board. Dealers will need to enforce enforce the $10 per hand and $100 per game limits, and arbitrate disagreements and rule misunderstandings at each table. Overseers will be needed to be sure that the dealers follow the limits and other rules and regulations. Security guards may even be needed to protect players and cash. These are dramatic changes to the bingo hall. Do you really want to expose the friendly charitable bingo and raffle hall crowds to the interpersonal competition of poker? Charitable poker is an abuse of charity because it teaches, endorses, and facilitates poker gambling. Once hooked, Virginians can easily up the stakes using online poker on their smartphone to further grow their gambling addiction, with a corresponding negative impact on families and communities. There would be no benefit to this charity this bill claims to support because the players have moved on to higher stakes games. The charity folks then come back and ask you to lift the $10 per hand and $100 per game limits, causing Virginia's gambling addictions to become even more advanced disorder on the gambling addiction continuum. It should not be your desire to develop Virginians' addictions to gambling, no matter how worthy the beneficiary may be. It's still gambling, even though the bill calls it gaming. You might make it legal, but that does not make it wise. Now, regarding the poker tournaments, the bill has no provisions for local input, zoning input, or veto. This is a skinny casino bill. The 1 day per week initial limits are easily removed later. There's no provision for paying into a problem gambling treatment and support fund, something you should require on all gambling initiatives, including those already in place. The National Council on Problem Gambling states that everyone who provides gambling opportunities has a responsibility to develop policies and programs to address problem gambling issues. SB 1400 poker tournaments require minimum winnings of $50,000, which will draw local players into games where semi-professional poker players will just take their money. Then local players will want to further develop their skill or experience so they can win bigger money. This is a very bad idea to coach people to gamble, develop an addiction, and destroy their families. There's no native industry being supported here, which was the excuse to expand horse racing gambling in recent years. There's no beneficiary like the relationship between the lottery and education. There's no beneficiary like toll mitigation in casino bills introduced over the years by the patron.
You want to wrap up, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah, 2 more seconds. This is a camel's nose under the tent bill and should be rejected for this reason alone. Please don't force those who would study poker to show, please force those who would force you to show their full hand. Don't let the cover of a federal court ruling say that poker is a game of skill and therefore not illegal gambling. Cloud your thinking or cause you to make the wrong decision for Virginians. Please vote no on this poker bill.
Any Virginians, I'm an independent Baptist. I appreciate Louise's desire, Senator Lucas's desire.
You've been calling the word, Tony.
I'm sorry, I have to approach you properly here. But we just feel like this is a wrong direction for the reasons stated. Thank you.
George.
Mr. Chairman, members, we at the Virginia Charitable Bingo Association would be opposed to SB 1400 in its state. We certainly appreciate Senator Lucas's efforts. First of all, line 232 allows for qualified organizations, charities to play poker, and on line 252, it prohibits those charities from conducting poker tournaments. So, in other words, this isn't really a charitable endeavor. It's partly charitable and partly not charitable. We know the charities need every boost they can get, but this really isn't that boost. Secondly, we have the Charitable Gaming Board, of which I currently serve, regulating poker tournaments. As I just mentioned, the poker tournaments are conducted by non-charities. Why would we have a charitable gaming board regulating activity by for-profit folks? And lastly, I wanted to say that while I am pleased to serve on the board, everyone on that board has extensive knowledge and information about charitable bingo. To my knowledge, none of us have any significant knowledge of poker. And if this were to pass through, I'd hate to think that myself or anybody else on that board would be responsible. Perhaps in the future when we have time to work through these details, but I don't think it's ready at this point. Thank you.
poker tournaments as defined in this article shall be permitted to conduct or shall be conducted only in strict compliance. So what it's saying is that poker is a game of skill, and if you do a poker tournament, you have to be registered with the state. But if it's not a poker tournament, an MGM can come in here and build a poker casino because you've just made poker not gambling. So as long as it's not a tournament, yes, I think I'm right on this. When people were talking, I was reading what Bill said. So if we were to pass this, it would require a lot more work.
Any more discussion? Senator Lucas, you want to wrap up? You good?
I would just appreciate it if you would pass it though.
Okay. Ready?
Chair, I have a question for the patron. There was a FIS statement associated with it that talked about having expenditures in the out years, and therefore there was no impact on the current biennium. Did the senator submit a budget amendment associated with covering any of these costs, and did that budget amendment make it into the Senate?
There it is, right there. In 2019, yes, in 2019, it would be, it would have an impact in 2019, but not until then.
And follow up, so you didn't do an amendment for this year because there's no impact to this biennium?
That is correct.
Go ahead.
Another, I mean, just an observation. I've always thought about how poker would become legal in Virginia. If you could find one Commonwealth attorney to write a letter or express an opinion that poker is a game of skill, then the state would have to jump in and regulate it, because at least in that jurisdiction, it would be totally legal, and casinos could come in and set up poker casinos. And I just think that until the time comes where some attorney general or Commonwealth attorney opines that poker is a game of skill, I just don't think that we'll pass a bill. The gentleman from Family Foundation, for example, would now be for this bill if somebody had opined that poker was a game of skill, but that hasn't happened yet.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, that's why we brought up that there's 4 Supreme Court cases stating that poker is a game of skill, not chance.
Okay, committee?
And there's 17 states, I believe, that has this legislation. Yes, sir. But I think Kentucky did the closest one.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. Chair, will entertain a motion.
I will move the lay on the table.
Second.
Okay, non-debatable motion. Motion's laid on the table. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I will be back with my 2 young senators again next year.
Senator,
You know I'm not gonna quit.
We're gonna help write that next year. We'll help write that next year.
Citizens requested by the city of Roanoke, in a very narrow situation where, the ban allow, simply enabling legislation to allow locality, when it has, pretty well defined near an outdoor, amphitheater or concerts and the like, to allow it to prevent smoking, and it's a $25 fine, civil penalty. If I like a parking ticket. Again, it's enabling legislation for the locality to pass by ordinance after hearing all this, not allowing smoking in an outdoor amphitheater, concert type of environment. The reason for this is the parents have been complaining when children are coming to the outdoor amphitheater. It's very popular, and they have a lot of concerts and things. The parents have been complaining with people sitting next to their children or smoking and bothering
fairly, it's an amphitheater, but it's fairly closed environment, as you're sitting next to a bunch of people. And so when people are smoking nearby, it affects you. And so, again, it would be enforced by $25 civil penalty, like a parking ticket. And that's basically what it is. And Rob Capes is here, City of Vernon, explain it further.
Okay.
I think the Senator did a good job explaining the bill about catering and City of Vernon liaison. As the Senator said, after every concert, City Manager's office gets 20, 30 phone calls from parents complaining about people smoking near their kids. They would like the city to have the ability to set up designated non-smoking areas at the Elmwood Park. The bill is drafted to include only amphitheaters owned by a locality. So when Virginia Beach would not count, I don't think Virginia Beach owns that amphitheater. Beach does own it? Okay, so Virginia Beach would be included as well. Chief of the Line is not owned by Prince William County, and the line in Northern Virginia off 66 is owned by National Park Service. So I think the bill's from fairly limited fashion.
So this is an open question to anybody here who knows anything about local government law, which may be nobody. But actually, Gordon, you might know this. You were on right? Okay, so if a local government owns an amphitheater, I'm assuming that the local government has the authority, because they own an amphitheater, to set times where it's going to be open, to pick the vendors that are going to sell food, to look at the color of the doors, to decide how many bathrooms there are. Why couldn't they also decide just to have it non-smoking if they own the amphitheater? Would you? I mean, not. Yeah.
Dillon rule, I think is what they would say. They need the authority to do it.
Oh, you know? She knows.
Chairman, locality from the Virginia municipality. It's our position that the Dillon rule says the locality by ordinance may only prohibit smoking, and it's listed certain places like school grounds and public buildings, and it doesn't specifically say outdoors. So if you look at a lot of localities, Arlington is a good example. Arlington has signs at their park that says, please don't smoke here, because they can't ban it, but they can ask you to have the courtesy.
That's a follow-up question. So is the legal analysis that because the Virginia Code has made rules regarding smoking for local governments, if it's not in that list, then by exclusion you can't do it?
That's right.
Okay. So this is another follow-up question. So let's just say that that list never existed in the code. Then the argument that I made could be used, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Claudia, I want to go to that.
Thanks.
Okay, anyone else here to speak to this matter? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Dr. Vanessa Walker, U.S. Virginia Department of Health, speaking on behalf of the administration, and we support this bill.
Thank you. Okay, committee, any more questions from the committee? Okay.
Mr. Chairman? So, on the one hand, I'd like to give them the authority to be able to operate their wholly owned facility the way they think's best for the citizens and the patrons. On the other hand, just like I said before, all we do here is make exceptions to rules. And the next is going to be any privately owned amphitheater, and then it'll be any outdoor area or any playground area, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
What's wrong with that? Mr. Chairman, I think a private facility can, ban it anyway. It's a private facility. This is a public locality.
to make them do it, what I was thinking. In the future, if I'm still here many years from now, I'm sure there will be somebody saying, well, all we did was back in 2000. that code section that, that lists the things that local governments can restrict.
So, Mr. Chairman, give me a minute, I'll find it, but there's not one code section, there's a whole bunch of them. Because it's been scattered throughout the code with numerous.
Okay, never mind.
We banned, smoking in the restrooms, we did it some time ago. This is akin to that, because it's outdoors, but it's people sitting next to each other. And you have to put up signage, have to have an ordinance, have to go through the hearings, and it's no more than a city $25 civil fine, like a parking ticket. And I'm sure somebody would say, hey, please quit smoking, don't do it. That's probably what happened. But it gives people, the city, the authority to say, look, please don't smoke here. Doing the contrary.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion. I'm not supposed to talk before I make the motion I'm about to make, but I'm gonna talk anyway, and then you can recognize me again, right? Okay. So I still feel like this is setting up that if we plant this Christmas tree, someone's gonna come and ask for sort of an exception for everything under the sun. I may be wrong, but that's my statement, Mr. Chairman.
Totally agree.
I have a motion to gently lay this bill on the table.
Second.
Okay, it's non-debatable. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Is that done?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Senator DeStefano.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we have Senate Bill 1216, which I believe we have an amendment for. And what Senate Bill 1216 does is,
Mr. Chairman, the amendment is on page 2, line 105, after consumption, strike whenever spirits are sold or served, and insert until at least 30 minutes prior to an establishment's closing.
Is that the only one we have, right?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Let's get the amendment before us.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the amendment.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Senator.
Chairman, members of the committee, if I may, Senate Bill 1216 is a very simple bill and reinforces the 1971 Mothers Against Drunk Driver Act, which says while the serving spirits will serve food. That's basic, that's it. So last call for alcohol, same as last call for food, minus the 30 minutes so they can shut the kitchen 30 minutes before, which ABC has already put a circular letter out stating that with the last revision of what food is designated as.
Chairman, that last statement caught my attention. Did you say that ABC has already put this out in a letter? All
I'm sorry, the only thing ABC has put out in the letter is the 30-minute ruling. So 30 minutes, I believe you can shut your kitchen down 30 minutes before you stop serving. What this says, where and when you serve alcohol is where and when you serve food, which again reinforces the 1971 Mothers Against Drunk Drivers initiative.
I might have a follow-up.
Okay, any more questions, Baker? Okay, anyone here to speak in favor of this measure? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Billy Alva?
I'm sorry, so if you already explained this, I apologize, because I was over there dealing with smoking. What is the problem you're trying to solve?
It's truly reinforcing the 1971, and, where Mothers Against Drunk Drivers came out and said, where and when you serve spirits, serve food.
Okay. Does food shelving in the lawn here? Mr. Chairman, so Country Club in West Springfield in my neighborhood had an ABC agent come, and the grill wasn't on at 6 in the morning, but you could get a Bloody Mary, because people like to do Bloody Mary while they're playing golf.
find anywhere. ABC recently issued a circular letter to clarify that that means within up to 30 minutes before closing. The problem is, that's a circular letter, most licensees don't know to look for a circular letter. This would actually have ABC put it in the regulations that would be available to licensees to know what the standard in fact is.
So when I read it, it doesn't say requirements for a license to have food cooked or prepared. So do you think this would require the grill to be on the entire time, or just that food be available?
Just food be available. Typically what most restaurants will do is close the kitchen maybe 10 o'clock at night and have a limited menu available after that. Many times there are sandwiches that are prepared, they're refrigerated, they can be heated at late at night, so it doesn't require a full kitchen operation, but it does require prepared foods to be available up to that 30-minute time.
I used to not like the bill, but now I do.
Any more discussion? Okay. Speaker, I'm not speaker yet. The chairman entertain a motion.
Sure, I just wonder what Travis is standing. Does he have an opinion? Does he want to say something? You want to talk about that circular letter that did or didn't go out?
We do have a circular letter. I will say, we were putting all circular letters in the town halls, and now they're very accessible for Mr. List clients. But no, it's current practice what we do right now. And I was going to answer your question, Dave, now that
Mr. Chairman, so similar to Senator Cabola's, are we doing anything in this law that is different than what we're doing right this second without this law?
No, I think you're codifying what our current practice is. I think that's what's going on.
So similar to me voting no against your bill because we're already doing it.
Okay, so
We're already doing it.
So there are, there's the Constitution, there's the code, there's regulations, right? And then there's these opinions floating around that only people who are really into it know what these opinions are. So this is different than that last bill, which I think you're right, didn't do anything, they're not only doing. This is saying, you need to put this, you need to move this from these letters, which are just opinions, into regulations, which are actually laws.
Enforceable.
Correct.
Okay, committee? Okay. Do I have a second? Have a motion to the floor? I have a second. Okay. Bill, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Delegate Anderson? Aye. Okay. Motion, all, any opposed?
I'll keep it off the.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much.
Senator Carrico. He's been in and out.
It's hard to see, yeah.
What did you say? What did you say? No.
He may be ready. I just texted him. Okay, give Delegate out with your position.
I can explain this. You've seen some bills already, so you know that there's a code section that allows for exemptions in areas where drinking is not allowed. And the local governments, in their attempts to bring in businesses, especially on Interstate 81 and highways, want exceptions because no hotel or restaurant is ever opening up in an area where you can't have consumption of
Chairman, if I can provide some clarification on this as well. It also is, with the piece of property they're talking about is right across from the state police barracks.
No happy are the state police.
Is anyone here to speak to this measure? Okay. This committee's pleasure. I have a motion to report.
Don't say anything, don't say anything. We don't even blow it now.
Sure. After second.
Okay. Do I have a second to the motion? Okay, discussion?
Mr. Chairman, is this the section of the code that talks about exceptions in the dry counties that we talked about a couple weeks ago? And the fact that a dry county could make this decision on their own, but they're asking us to make it.
They don't want to have a referendum, that's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank
I
you.
don't know that this one is exactly that.
You might not want to get.
I won't say a word.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor of the measure, say aye.
Aye.
No.
One no. Congratulations to the